Welcome back to another WebTeb podcast episode where we help aspiring developers get jobs and junior developers grow. In this episode, we're going to be helping out people who may have ADHD who are trying to tackle the developer path. And we're going to tackle some of the challenges and how to use basically your strengths to excel in this path as well. But what I'd like to cover today is how to excel in your actual learning to code journey. And we might even be able to touch on how you can be effective in the workplace with ADHD. So I think there are enough people out there with this condition, and I don't think it's a blocker for becoming a developer. So I decided to bring on Henry. He's going to talk about it. He's going to share some tips with us. But Henry, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me on, Don.
Happy to do it. So I'm just going to be candid. So who are you? And why should people care what you have to say about this topic?
I'm an ADHD coach for professionals and entrepreneurs. And why you should care about this topic? Well, ADHD is one of the most amazing things on earth. If you have ADHD, no matter if you're a programmer, entertainer, an entrepreneur, you have so much creativity, so much passion, so much drive in whatever you're good at doing. And when you can unleash the full potential of that, you can, create amazing stuff in the world that people are so wowed at. Whether it's, amazing movie, amazing program, amazing art, because, life is short and ADHD people can, leave such a big impact. And there's many ADHD folks that are stuck because they don't have realization of how they can create a system and environment to help them become whatever they want to be and create amazing things.
Cool. Okay. I'm going to love to touch on that system a bit more later. So what has you so interested in helping people out with ADHD?
Yeah, so I'm so interested in helping people out with ADHD because I also have ADHD. So I was undiagnosed for many years until I was 22. I was lost for many years, and I was that lazy smart student who almost failed calculus because it wasn't interesting and it takes a lot of practice. And I was good at math for most of my life until I hit calculus. And at the same time, I was stuck in being addicted to video games and other distractions, which many folks with ADHD they they usually face that one time in their life or another. And I wanted to, create something for myself. But I didn't know what. And I was obsessed with learning though towards, close to diagnosis. And I was becoming more myself, which I'm still trying to get back in touch with that because, a lot of times the Asian folks they don't get to be themselves. They get pushed by family and society to do this or that, and they can't be themselves. One of the part is creativity, since society values just being linear and not taking risk, except for entrepreneurs. And so, so when I was, discovering more about ADHD after getting diagnosed and getting help myself, I was like, huh, I like helping people. I like learning about ADHD and psychology and self-improvement and biology and all that stuff. And and I can apply my strengths, helping people, problem solving, connecting with people, being personable to help ADHD folks, realize their dreams and whatever else is in the way. And because I was like, oh, I could be a psychologist but I was like, what, sorry, like for many ADHD folks, they don't want to be stuck in a system or follow rules unless they have structure, good structure that supports them, and that's fine. Like a video game has a good structure to support you to get where you want. And that's what ADHD folks need. They need some sort of structure. So me being, helping them be their guide to wherever they want to go, and we're trying to create their own system and environment, like their own video game to get where they want. And it takes time because just like one person trying to create something is already a lot. Then two-person working, it makes it easier. It just takes time. Everything's time. Like programming takes time. And figuring out your old habits that you're trying to break away from and whatever other challenges, whether it's sleep, eating, exercise, all that stuff, it all takes time. So being being that, light bringer to ADHD folks is such a good experience.
Okay. I appreciate you sharing that. You sound very interested. You sound passionate about this. That's awesome. So let's break this down. You've kind of included a couple almost strategies initially, which I'm sure we'll dive into. But I want to dive into the idea of like, okay, so I have ADHD, and there are going to be challenges ahead of me with learning to code, right? So I'd like for both of us to kind of just have a conversation, right? I can bring some expertise of what it's like to learn to code. You can bring some expertise of what it's like to live with ADHD and learn with ADHD. So I'm really curious to learn from you. So let's kind of start, I guess, a little bit more generically. When you have ADHD, what do people with ADHD struggle with a lot more in terms of learning, and kind of like just think about like different structures of learning and whether like maybe they should seek out a certain structure, they should create one, they should create a system for themselves, and what they should avoid. I'm kind of just curious to learn about like what is the experience of someone with ADHD with learning, and what should they try to strive for to make that experience even better?
Yeah, so learning. So with ADHD folks, there's folks that are inattentive, combined, or hyperactive. So programmers usually lean towards inattentive and then some combined. So usually it's the inattentive symptoms in both combined and inattentive that causes issues. And so with learning, so that could be difficulties with memory, being forgetful, attention to details, and hyper focus, which meaning they can spend hours and hours on something and forget about everything else, which can be good for programming. It's just when you may be doing the wrong thing, or you got off doing something else you enjoy, because maybe some parts of programming you don't enjoy, because it's not like you enjoy all of it, but you enjoy a lot of it, which is important. So finding, ways so you can stop your specific tendencies to get distracted, be forgetful, be disorganized, and with handling learning. Because with programming, there's always so many languages and new languages coming about. And that's one of the reasons why AC folks love it, because there's so many languages to keep learning and keep improving and being open. And AC folks are more open too. So learning how you can create the system to stay focused, like one language at a time, one tab at a time, which can be difficult, etc. And finding out your learning style, whether you're a visual learner, whether you're auditory learner, etc. So of course, we're trying to make a custom system to you, because there's different things that you're more interested in doing. It's because there's like 100 million ways to pay attention better, but you're only going to be like interested in a few of them. So figuring out what works for you and consistently, using that or switching things up to help you continue learning better.
All right. Do you mind if I give you a scenario?
Sure.
So I hear that people with ADHD are more open to learning. And I guess I want to understand this a little bit more before I give this scenario. But when you say open to learning, it sounds like you were implying that they are open to jump into a bunch of different languages and if they want to learn a single language and stick with it for a long time, they have to build a system. Is that true?
If it depends on the person, but generally yes, because if you get bored of it or it gets harder, then you want to jump, or something becomes more interesting, then you want to jump. And, having some strong restrictions or pressures and why you're doing it and reminders and feedback, that you're feeling good about it to keep going because the yes, you can focus for hours, but sometimes it's like that's if there's like good pressure, whether it's a deadline of urgency and accountability, or that you really, really like it, or you really make solving so many problems. But if you're not, then sticking with something can be really challenging. So, so like in video games, there's usually a lot of repetitive stuff, but there's always feedback. And if you're not getting that when you're doing something, then with especially with ADHD, then it's like I don't want to do it. It's like it's too much struggle, too much complexity. I don't want to keep going.
And so that's the tricky thing where I see a lot of successful people that are trying to become developers. They learn to love that struggle. They learn to love that complexity. And I've said this before, you kind of have to be, you have to enjoy the pain, the mental pain that comes from basically, beating your head for 2 hours straight on the same bug that ends up being a typo, or it ends up being like a weird, small conditional thing. And then you have to kind of just feel victorious that you finally found this thing that has been eating at you for so long. You have to find some enjoyment. You have to find some aha moment with that. And I think a lot of developers, it's hard to suggest how they do it, but I think you have to develop some grit to just know this is going to be mentally painful for a little bit. You have to accept it. Like you said, like you have to know why you're doing it, right? Like you really want to become a developer. You have to back yourself up with that reason. But I think my concern with people with ADHD is they're not going to follow through long enough to be able to get to those aha moments, to be able to actually like overcome those challenges, because you can't just enjoy the frustration. You have to get to the victories. And sometimes those victories are very far away. So I'm wondering how people with ADHD, I guess like maybe we could talk about, any strategies you have on, like, let's say, you faced a bug for a day straight, right? Let's say 3 hours one day, you decide to pick it up the next day, you spend a couple hours and you just are still struggling through it. You feel like you're making a little bit of progress, but how can we get people with ADHD to like push through to that finish line to get that little dopamine hit at the end?
Yeah, so persistence is a very, very big challenge. So ADHD folks can be very persistent. It's just everybody has their own level of persistence and for what thing. And, some of the most famous ADHD folks, or also some of them Asperger's or high functioning autism, which probably Steve Wozniak is probably high functioning autism and probably also ADHD, is, having that persistence can can be very good in your career. And having a comfort zone expand over time so you can be resilient. And a lot of times with life, a lot of things are too comforting and you don't create stress and pressure and reward yourself. Even just self-talking and plotting yourself gives you dopamine and helps, alleviate the pain of going through not getting that dopamine until the end. So you just like in a video game, you got to figure out, hey, whether I play music that helps me focus, whether I exercise before, whether I, find a way to fidget while programming, whether I, sip something I enjoy, finding ways to get dopamine and to enjoy during the process and before. So you have dopamine in your brain, so you feel better about doing it. That's a lot of things in life for ADHD folks. It's like you got to create dopamine before. It's like an athlete. You got to warm up for activity and then also recover after activity and repeat and rinse. So making sure you're in the right mindset before you get into the game. And after game, analyze what you did well, what didn't go well, applauding yourself, because you need more freaking applauding. Because video games are ridiculous. They just repeat like the five same phrases over and over again in a span of 2 4 hours if you're playing 2 4 hours. And it's like it sounds silly, but if you do it yourself, even you listen a recording, a lot of programmers, they put on a headset and then go, go, go. If you just put some recordings of you applauding yourself every so often, you're going to feel better about doing it. And self-talk is very important because, programmers, they can, especially Asian folks, they can get into negative self-talk, like I'm not good enough or I'm lazy or etc. So having that feedback loop helps endure that pain better. So finding what ways to keep bringing that feedback loop. So like for me, I say to myself, I'm resilient, capable, unstoppable. I'm getting better every day and day. And things of that nature to help keep you going. Because if you don't visualize success or, feel like I already won this interview, I'm successful. I already had the interview. You're already winning the game. So if you think you already achieved it, of course you're gonna be more likely to feel better during it. So you can easily trick your mind to feel whatever you want to feel, because the mind is a magical thing, and just like computers, it's like all this is magical. So if you take use curiosity for yourself, about understanding yourself, how you can feel better about this, asking questions, you can start, creating bigger comfort zone and that you're not afraid to, take on stress. And part of that is also getting away from bad addictions, video games and junk food and all that stuff, because that decreases your willpower and your stress tolerance and comfort levels with dealing, the struggles. It's like 3 days of the same thing. I mean, for like example, one of the most famous inventors, Thomas Edison. It's like how many times did he had to go through to invent the light bulb? It's like so many things. And of course, there's different examples also in the programming world. And it's like you gotta start, building, stress tolerance every day if you want to be successful at anything. And just sometimes, just taking, a step back and, just saying, I did a great job. I showed up. I showed up. Most Asian folks, you could go into a new language. You could be learning even Japanese or something instead of doing programming because it's more enjoyable. I mean, you could record, I'm wonderful in Japanese and listen to that. I mean, that's better than nothing, and then program. So making the situation better, what you can control, because you feel like it's out of your control, the the bug. It's like, okay, I will get there or not get there. You can choose what you believe. And so, yeah.
Okay. I like I like a lot of the advice that you're giving can be applied to everyone, which is cool. But it sounds like people with ADHD really could benefit from a lot of this advice. And so you'd mentioned self-talk. I like the idea of basically visualizing, and you hear this a lot, visualizing yourself as already being successful. You want to become this person, you are this person. You do that through mantras, and I think they're effective. They've been effective for me. I've seen them be effective for other people. But essentially, you're right. Like there is a lot of negative self-talk. And when we allow our emotions, when we attach emotions to that self-talk that is negative, that's when it really gets bad. And we convince ourselves to stop and not do this thing that we know is going to be good. But at the moment, it doesn't feel like we should pursue this because that feeling of angst, that feeling of doubt is just strong in our emotions. I'm kind of curious, to have a few questions, but just a quick question. Do you feel like, because you're talking about like self-doubt, And people with ADHD can, sounds like, frequently start talking themselves out of doing something, and they'll stop that activity. They'll stop whatever they're pursuing, right? Do you feel like a mindfulness meditation is beneficial to people with ADHD?
Yeah, so mindfulness meditation would be very helpful. It's to help you settle down your mind and body, gives you dopamine, and and then you can take a pause and reevaluate yourself, what's going on. Self-reviews are very important. Did I eat? How am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Did I forget the most urgent thing I planned? Etc. is very important. And making mindfulness meditation more you, or make it more physical, and scheduling those frequently will help you tackle anything in life, and especially with ADHD, because you can get easily frustrated real quick, and and if you don't have enough dopamine and reminders to, hey, settle before you run away from whatever you're doing. So, even just, tracing your hand with breathing, or just praying and then breathing, just the cycle of in and out, and just being, more in touch with your body, just practicing that daily, just little things and little places where you can trigger yourself to breathe. Where it doesn't even have to be, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but the more you do it for longer, the more you get in the period. Just, before you do that, tackle that challenging bug again, you know, you breathe one time, two times, three times, four times, five times. It's like, I got this. That I'm gonna do a great job. I'm gonna, keep going. It doesn't matter if I don't get it. I'm gonna, breathe in, positive. You can also, when you visualize, you can breathe in positive. So think about like positive energy coming in, and then when you breathe out, you can breathe out your whatever negative self-talk, or the struggles of this bug, etc. And just having that cycle of breathing will really help them get through stuff.
Okay. Seems like self talk is very important. Do you feel like, so you had mentioned kind of setting yourself up before you dive into this kind of activity that's going to require a lot of focus and there's duration, and they're going to have to sit there and focus on this thing for a while. Do you feel like watching a motivational video of like what it's like to be a developer or something like that would be beneficial before you dive into the code?
Well, if you feel like it helps you, if it doesn't, then maybe not. So some things people might do instead is like quick exercise, a quick Mario Kart race, putting on a timer, having accountability buddy, whatever it is to help get you in the zone is important. Whether, any of that can work if it works for you and you can do it consistently, or you randomly pick things, depending on you, because of course, some things there's a variety. So when you learn how to harness quickly the get in the zone mentality, which there's so many ways, even just um, squeezing your abs gets your eyes to start dilating and you get into focus mode. Or even turning off lights and opening your eyes gets them to dilate. So figuring out how you're going to consistently get into zone, even throwing darts or throwing a basketball, or even watching something move up and down, tracking things with your eyes can help you get in the zone. And using your body also along with it helps it even better to get in the zone, because if you don't prepare yourself, then you're not gonna program as well as you could. But you got to warm up the engine before driving, um, to help it work much, much better. So you think of yourself the same way, that you got to take care of this body and take care of this mind if you want to perform well in whatever you're doing for a long term. Because a lot of programmers, they can burn out from any stage because they're not taking care of themselves.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a message for programmers without ADHD, just programmers in general. Um, a lot of programmers just live on caffeine and just they're desperate for
Mm,
it, and
yeah,
that's a that's a problem for a lot of people.
yeah.
So I like this setup. So basically, you're talking about um, taking care of your body, and you know that can branch into a bunch of different things like eating healthy, getting sleep, a little meditation if it does help you. But you know, just taking care of yourself, and also prepping yourself. It's also a self-talk, and it's kind of like prepping your mindset to just be successful and then go into that conference room and give this amazing speech. Go and like sit down in front of that computer and like make progress. Hit your goals for that day. So I like the pep talk initially, because again, like a lot of this feedback is probably helpful for some people that are just struggling with motivation in general. But there's a part of grit and resilience that's built up by accepting that this thing is going to suck and I'm going to do it anyways. And I feel like people with ADHD are going to have a harder time pushing themselves through that phase to build that grit and that long term focus, which is going to eventually show them they can do it. Because I think a lot of people with ADHD are more capable than what they think. And it's about showing them that. But what, I mean, like you can only do so much to boost dopamine and get you motivated. Do you feel like a lot of ADHD people are capable of just sitting down for 2 hours and experiencing frustration and a little mental pain to learn a bit and grow from that bug that they're facing? Do you feel like they have that without a system? Do you think people with a lot of a lot of people with ADHD people are capable of that for hours without these little tricks beforehand? Or do you really think they should strive to lean on a system, to try to lean on setting themselves up for success?
Yeah, so no, it's a tough question, and I guess it's why MMV. Depends on the person, his health, his conditioning in life, what he grew up with, and all the fancy stuff and attractive stuff nowadays, and you know, and their intelligence and different, little things about them that, hey, how long will you stick with that and keep going? And maybe they already have some coping mechanism because Asian folks, no matter what, they have some coping mechanism, some good, some bad, to help them get through whatever they're getting through. It's just maybe it's not as good as it could be if they had someone help refine it to get where they want. And so, having feedback and watching, behavior. It's like driving. It's like, okay, after you learn driving, who watches you? Nobody. It's just you, and it's like there's no feedback to fix any bad habits that you created um post just seeing a guy a couple hours to learn driving, or your parents. It's like no one, you develop bad habits and stuff. So it depends on the person. It's just in general, if you have a talented boxer, if he has a boxing coach, he's going to get farther and refinement and keep getting better and better. It's just when he's solo, it's like it's tough, um, to keep persisting because Aishi folks, they're even more motivated when they have urgency, accountability, and deadline. It's those things that really push people to do what they do. That's why the emergency doctors, a lot of them have ADHD because they were passionate about becoming a doctor to save people, and they get adrenaline rushes saving people, and there's urgency, accountability, and deadline. So, and that's what people are looking for when they drink caffeine. It's stress. Caffeine is giving stress, and Adderall and all the stimulants are giving you stress too. It's just even stronger than caffeine. It's just when you take that too much, it's really wrecks your sleep and in your sleep cycle, especially taking after 11 a.m. And you're just, relying on that with like, hey, sometimes you can't keep going because you don't do as well when you keep going, and you're exhausting your system and your focus and your mood and all those things. Is, keep pushing the horse when it doesn't want to go anymore. It needs to relax so it can regenerate. So it depends on the person. It's just a lot of people, yes, it's caffeine for ADHD folks. It's caffeine or constantly listening some fast music or whatever it is to keep them going, which is just, all of them is just stress. It's just stress, and it's too much stress, and you're gonna burn out and have other issues then too to deal with.
Okay. Um, let me let me go ahead and give you kind of a scenario of just a bit of an effective strategy as a developer. I kind of just want to hear what your thoughts are and how someone with ADHD will be able to manage something like this. And I also really like what you said, kind of like um, where people with ADHD will lean on taking stimulants that do increase stress. And I think a lot of them probably need to hear the message that a lot of them do continue to push themselves extremely hard. And this is for non ADHD people with caffeine. It's for developers in general, where people need to listen to their body, and you can stress your system, and it'll actually just slow you down long term. So I really like that you said that. But here's a bit of a strategy of trying to become a developer. Let's say you're going through like the self-taught, you're going through courses online, you're trying to learn how to code, but you are going to take a course that hopefully, and I'm kind of just going to give a strategy, and you're welcome to pick it apart, but you would probably, with ADHD, want to find something like extremely gamified, entertaining, and you're going to go through this course. But the strategy to reinforce this knowledge really needs to be like, okay, I went through this module, I learned this, I learned these fundamental concepts. Now I need to step outside this course, and maybe this is beneficial. Maybe you're just getting bored of going through that same course over and over. Maybe this is beneficial to switch it up. But you go through the course, and then you learn some stuff, and then you build something small with it. Right? You get a little exercise to reinforce this concept. Then you jump back into the course, you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. And this building on the side takes your mind out of the context, and it kind of like you do switch context a little bit. What I usually recommend is like, and I forgot to say this, you go through the course module, then you articulate out loud what you just learned. So it's another way to reinforce these concepts. Then you apply it, right? So basically you teach it. We talk about this concept of a rubber duck. You put it on your desk. Once you learn that concept, you teach this rubber duck what you just learned to the best of your ability. And then you code it out and you reinforce what you just learned. And then you go through the module again and again and again. Where people get stuck is they just go through 50 hours of courses thinking they're going to retain everything they're learning, and it gives you dopamine hits, but that's it. Like that, you're just getting dopamine hits. You're not learning. You're not remembering the stuff. You have to apply it to remember it. So do you feel like, well, there's going to be, I'll split this into two halves. The first half is learning, maybe teaching that rubber duck, and then applying it to like a little mini challenge, a mini project, and then you cycle over and over and over again. And slowly you start working in the code more often than you're going through the course. That's like the first half of a new developer's learning journey. They're going through the course, but they have to apply these concepts outside the course. What do you think about that process of like someone with ADHD going through that? Does that work for people with ADHD, or do they need to just go straight through that course, 20 hours straight?
Yeah, so what you just illustrated here is very good for ADHD. So we're trying to help you absorb the knowledge by helping you not just go through all of it, just having you do hands-on, because ADHD folks, I mean, programmers like to build, engineers like to build. So you got to, make stuff if you want to, get dopamine and you want to see results. And so it's like, it gives like instant gratification. And of course, same time, ADHD folks, we can go hyper focusing on 50 hours of the courses. Some of us yes, some of us no. It's just then you're like you don't have anything to show for it. So it's like going like 50 chapters of calculus and not practicing calculus. And it's like you're gonna take calculus tests and you're gonna fail because you didn't practice the problems. And and then when you bring up teaching, first which is what humans did was teach others is the best way to learn in general. So it's like that helps reinforce it, and then making a project, somewhat. And so it's pretty much like the basic, like how humans learn. It's like teach other, start doing it. Teach others, start doing it. Um, so having that a system where the ADHD programmer can, feel, good about, becoming a programmer and not just oh, you went for the book and that's it. So, and then of course, adjusting it to whatever their specific tendencies is like, do you teach it to, say you like One Piece, you teach it to Luffy how to code or whatever it is you just learned. It's like making it more interesting to you. And, with all this, make it the project, the teach, like break it down. It's like when you say, okay, week one, I go for the course, then, weekend, I do the project or whatever it is, like you attach, make it more interesting instead of saying, go for the course or teach a duck. Make it more you, however, that gets your brain to light up, whatever your interests and hobbies outside of coding, etc. And then you're gonna enjoy it more and rewarding yourself that you did that and like keeping track all these projects. Like it's like it's like you have a portfolio of successes, all these little projects, which is great. Instead of just going for the book, you got for the book, but that doesn't that it's like writing about um creating uh uh uh, you know an artwork instead of just doing the artwork and have something to show for it. And it's like you're gonna get satisfaction when people look at your artwork, you track, oh, look at all this artwork I did. It's like you could have just done nothing and just dreamed about artwork. Instead, you made the art. And that's what you need to, if you want to be a great programmer or a great artist, you need to create work. And having a system like you said, combined with their specific tendencies and some more accountability or however it is to help them keep going with doing that. And because sometimes, as you know, you get lost on programming or in your own world, and it's like, get regrouping and reevaluating, am I doing the right thing, and it's, how can I, make this better, and and then hear other people and feeling part of a group instead of just, of course, that's one problem with the programming is that it's just like if it's a solo event, it feels not as satisfying as like in a group, small group, um, to 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 be successful and learning well, or etc.
Yeah, you can really feed off the energy of a group. And I like what you emphasized. Like you got to build, and you're going to see progress when you build. You're going to be able to compare old projects. You're going to see kind of like this variety of projects that you built or how big this project has become. And you can look back at that. And it's very hard to, well, I mean, the thing is, maybe with ADHD people, this isn't the case, but with people without it, a lot of them will look at the courses and they'll look at, I've spent 60 hours and I've looked at all these green check marks of this course, but that's actually extremely misleading. It doesn't signify that they've made significant progress in becoming a developer. So I like the recommendation to just build. And you had mentioned rewards. You had mentioned to reward yourself, whether it's with a video game or something like that, something that's a little bit more personable to you. When you've achieved your goals, when you've achieved what you wanted to achieve, reward yourself. So like that's all really good advice. Again, a lot of this advice applies to people without ADHD, and I think people would benefit from it. So when you start building projects, here's the tricky part, right? Becoming a developer, or like growing your skills, is part of becoming a developer. The other part is, like if you really want to stand out in today's market, It's building up your self-branding. It's building up your LinkedIn profile. It's interacting with other people. You mentioned this idea of, like programming can be lonely, which is true. And another reason why you should meet up with people. Another reason why, like, go to a meetup in your local area, like participate in a hackathon or something like that. Like, actually talk to other developers in a Discord but like self-branding in terms of like just get involved in the developer world and just share what you're working on, right? Like post your projects on LinkedIn, show your what you've completed. But that takes time, because like learning to program is a very different thing than marketing yourself as a developer. So you have to manage, building up your LinkedIn profile, your resume, your presentation, interacting with the developer community. And you got to juggle, like actually doing company research and applying for jobs that are tailored to your projects. And like, there's a lot of, if you want to really stand out, because it's a rough market right now, there's a lot you have to do outside of programming. Do you think people with ADHD are going to have a challenging time learning to code, which they should be doing all the way till they get that job and they learn on the job, and balancing applying for a job and all of that entails? Because it's a lot for people without ADHD. So I'm wondering, do you think they're going to have a challenge with managing a variety of things like that, or do they have strengths to be able to tackle that?
Yeah, so those things are very challenging. So a lot of things to handle at once. Now we've not just got programming, you got all the other things so you can get the job and keeping up with it. So developing a system using your strengths over time can help you get wherever you want. And, organizing it, through whether it's Trello Kanban system or, Todoist, or even something like Amazing Marvin, which is a very nice behavioral task management system, very good for ADHD folks because procrastination can be huge and being overwhelmed is huge. So figuring out, hey, it's okay. It's gonna take time, and self-talk and rewarding yourself, and you know learning how to manage your time and energy so you can hyper focus even on things you don't want to do that's outside of programming, and get it done, and when getting the social group, and as soon as possible, or having somebody to help get feedback and improve what you're doing so you don't overthink it or underthink it, and then you're going to feel much better because it's like, oh, I got all these things to do. Well, that's like saying pretty much I'm telling you to play 100 video games at once. No one's going to play 100 video games at once, and you're just going to pick it up and look at it and do nothing. So figuring out how to, delegate stuff, how to use like AI to help you, how to have someone, analyze your whole behavior and habits, and, your weak spots, and, and things that they know already to help you, be strategic. And, it's like, focusing on the things that specifically with those things that could get you a long way, like your strengths in particular, and, in any of those categories, or specific people that could really help you. Um, just heck, if you volunteer and you meet a lot of programmers, it's like that's great. Or, you join the hackathon or whatever it is, and you get connected. It's like, to somebody, and it's okay, that's easier than all the LinkedIn hoops or whatever it is. So finding out what you're comfortable with, and start moving towards that, and having a plan and having feedback to keep going.
Okay. I used to do this personally. I've used Amazing Marvin. But I know there are different trackers, and it sounds like organization is huge, very huge for people with ADHD. And you could probably find a tool that's probably going to be the best fit for you. But organization and feedback seem like the crucial things that you really emphasize there. And yeah, I mean, like, again, these are things I can improve on. especially organization, and I get overwhelmed when I don't feel in control and start forgetting things that I need to do, and I don't feel like I'm able to prioritize things well. It kind of just snowballs sometimes, and that can be a really rough feeling. But I mean, organization, I think that's huge. Um, okay, I I feel like we've really touched on a lot of um, not necessarily like very specific tools, but we touched on advice on how to kind of build out a system and get yourself a little bit more organized, and how to look for feedback, how to give yourself feedback, how to prep yourself for some of the longer hauls of programming, how to overcome some of the blockers that might come up and distract you and derail you, and things to watch out for. I think we covered a lot of good stuff for the learning. We got about a few more minutes, but I'm really curious if you have any tips about, like, okay, I got hired. I have ADHD. I have these challenges. I also have these strengths, but I got hired at a dev position. Now I'm expected to be able to perform, and I got to answer to different people, and I have deadlines, and maybe some of this is beneficial, maybe it's not. But what are some tips for people with ADHD once they do get hired in the workplace?
Yeah, so when you get in the workplace, first, expectations, assumptions, make sure, you're aligned with the company and the managers and colleagues, so don't have anxiety, or, you do the wrong thing, or you're a people pleaser and you say yes, 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 and it's too much for you to handle, too many things that you can't do by yourself. And because delegating is very important, and communicating th them your needs and being confident about that, and creating deadlines more near when you put on a calendar, so you can get things done earlier on important things, and having strong reminders and notification systems, and blocking out distractions so you can stay focused on whatever you need to do. And that can be a tough part, and making sure you have a good layout for your computer and your screens. And if you're remote, then it's even tougher, because then you don't have the people, and it's like people going to lunch and you stop, or you take it a little easy and then you come back, etc. No water cooler, etc. So you got to find out your specific system and your tools to help create that feedback loop, and keep track of everything, and make sure you take actual relaxing helpful breaks, taking a walk, breathing, write down the good things you did, uh, you know reevaluate what you did, doing some exercise to help increase focus, etc. Doing some stretching, and setting up maybe a time in the day that you could, make it, and do something you really enjoy for a short period, whether that's the beginning of the day, end of the day, or in the middle of the day. Like, creating some dopamine is very important, especially when you're, stuck on something for days and you don't feel any success. So, and, think about using your creativity and problem solving, and challenge um, interests, and novelty interests to help you, tackle the problem, and so you can feel better about tackling that bug. Just learn how to activate your brain to use it more, so you can feel better. And of course, doing stuff beforehand can help too. When you're doing a little creativity thing or problem solving thing, warming up that engine before you do things, so you can be in the zone to do it. Because you know w we all have like things that we, happiest time in our life, or the projects we're really proud of. It's like getting some of that will help you push through the struggles of whatever you're dealing with. And of course, in the beginning of programming, when your first job, it's like feels overwhelming, all the stuff handling, the people, the programming, and living on your own or whatever it is. So, figuring out as soon as possible how you can leverage your strengths and have feedback, and a system to take care of everything so you can succeed in the workplace and not get on remediation. Because that's a lot of the people who get on like performance review or remediation at work is like a good portion of them are HD folks, and it's like, it sucks, that you get put on performance review because you just don't have the system to help support you to get there. And yes, you don't have to say you have ADHD, but it's like, requesting, reasonable accommodations, or uh, like, quiet workplace, or flexible work hours, which of course, a lot of times it is flexible work hours nowadays, or, 3 days in office and etc. Or figuring out how to recreate that workplace environment at home and be like, this is a work desk. I'm not doing the play stuff right now. With your computer should not have, distractions on it, whether you using freedom or etc. to keep it out. And you go over there to relax, and you go over there to play. And you go so it's like having, designated areas for everything, just like in a video game or anywhere else in life is what you need to, it's like you can't, just even the browser of using Brave, you can put on work mode versus play mode or whatever. Or you just, even use a crappy computer to program, which you could. It's like you can't do anything else on there, just program. Um, you know, so, figuring out how can you set it up to be successful.
I like that. A lot of this advice really focuses on building a system to help you adapt. And when you're confident with that system, you can succeed very, very well. And it sounds like just understanding your motivation and how to kind of hack that and your focus and what causes you to defocus, when to analyze when you are focused a little bit too hard on something, how to be able to break away and analyze that. Maybe that's self-reflection. But yeah, like it sounds like a lot of the strategies really revolve around truly understanding what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are with ADHD, and building a system to just give you success. Which, again, I keep saying this over and over, but like this is also beneficial advice for a lot of people, including me. People in general, even if you don't think you work well in a system, it's because you haven't worked well enough, long enough in a system. Systems work. A lot of people are really designed to succeed in a system with a schedule and understand what your distractions are and being able to self-analyze all of this. And it does help very successful people continue to be successful. So this is awesome. But I do want to be conscientious of your time. Just realized we're about a minute over. And seriously, Henry, I appreciate you sharing me your perspective, especially with you having ADHD. I think you definitely gave a unique perspective. I got to poke around, ask questions, but I really think this is going to be helpful for people. So, people want to, after this episode, they get done watching, and maybe they're still struggling, and they want to reach out to you. What socials could you share with us, and anything else you want to share with us?
Yeah, so they can reach me at www.coachhenrylamb.com. That's like lamb without the letter B. So, or you can just reach me at ADHDcoachingnearme.com, which is easier to remember. And one thing I want to leave is, hey, you guys are amazing wherever you are in your life. And, there's hope, there's possibility, and, you got this.
Love it. Love the motivation. Henry, again, thank you so much for coming on. If you do have ADHD and this is something that you're struggling with, or you've found success in building a system or in implementing certain strategies, like definitely leave it below. Enough people have this where you are even leaving comments, and what you figured out is going to benefit other people watching this video. So, Henry, stick around for a couple minutes, but thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.